Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it is Your Impact Attack. And I am pointing at you there, sitting at home. Acknowledge the Impact Attack. Acknowledge the VBC. Put those ones up. Love your tribal chiefs. Yes, that's right. The VBC is here. And who is the VBC, you may ask? Well, I am the V in the VBC, the vet, Jamie Williams. With me, as always, my tag team partner, Brandon, who receives this sizzling hot tag through the power of the internet. And bam, House of Fire coming on in. Brandon, run a comeback on these people.
Oh, we're running the comebacks. We're here. We're hanging. We're chilling. It's the VBC. It's the Impact Attack. We're kicking it. It's Monday night. How y'all doing? Whoop, whoop. Bearcats in the house.
All right. And, of course, we have the C. That is the chat. They are with us live. So far, I only see Gam Wolfers, but I'm sure there will be more. The C cannot be stopped. Hello to Gam. He's taking his seat right now. Other people are filing in slowly. Be sure to make your voices heard. You're as much a part of the show as we are. That is why the VBC is a thing. Now, we're going to be talking about a little bit of TNA Impact. And I mean a little bit, because damn it, I don't have nothing to say about this show except a little bit of stuff. So that's, we're going to have a hard carry by punching up probably. And we're going to do all the usual stuff, but that's the other problem. The usual stuff being a little bit of news, a little bit of question. There's not much of either. So we'll just have to, this could be a squash match, in terms of how we approach this episode, and we'll get you guys in and out quickly, safely, and you can move on to other things while the night might still be young. Well, Brandon, has anything happened in the world since last we spoke? Not counting Jeff Lane Twitch chat.
Wrestling wise, nothing outside the kayfabe realm, I can really say.
Right. Well, non-wrestling wise, but we still had worked matches. Like if anybody watched the Jake Paul Mike Tyson, so like that's kind of a it's kind of a work or kayfabe realm, or I don't know if you caught any of that, but
I did not, but like the whole vibe story thing coming out of it, kind of like Mike Tyson kind of felt kind of a little Terry Funkish, if that makes sense. When like he's the old veteran kind of coming out of retirement to put the new guy over.
Yes. Very much like Terry Funk. And also like Terry Funk, if it was real, he would have fucked that guy up. That's the other thing we could take away from it, that even at an advanced age, Terry Funk would have beat the hell out of probably most anybody that he had to work with. And same thing with Tyson. So, no one really expected much else.
Let's get ready to buffer.
Yes. A lot of strain put on the Netflix servers. It was something that they were probably prepared to handle, and yet even their preparation was not enough. So it was a good test, because, they've done briefly flirted with live broadcasts in the past, like a Chris Rock stand-up special, I think was the first one they did, wasn't it? I think that was the first live, like, Netflix streaming event. And even though I didn't watch it live, I remember that being like one of the things that they were touting. And if they're going to want to get into anything like sports or something on a regular basis, which they will with Monday Night Raw, I say if they want to get into sports, because like let's say they get an NFL deal at some point, that's going to be a lot higher viewership than a Monday Night Raw. So it's going to be something similar to this, like you're going to have supposedly the 50 million that was being that number was being thrown around. You're going to have at least that if you've got NFL games and stuff on a weekly basis. Raw ain't going to do nowhere near that, but it could potentially be a lot of people because multiple countries now would be using Netflix to watch Raw live if they wanted to. And especially the debut episode is probably going to be heavily promoted, and it's going to be a chance for, this would be one of the first times where you could say, oh yes, even though I live in, like Germany, or if I live in Japan, or if I live in wherever, like you could be watching Raw at the same time as everyone else. And so I just to be a part of that, kind of like with the, with the AEW All In at Wembley, like people going to just to say, hey, I went to Wembley, like I was there. And to say you saw Netflix live with everyone in the world at the same time, you could never say that about Raw before. You could say it now. So they might have a huge number that first week, like a staggering number, actually. Who knows? Or they could just, have just a few million. But either way, it's a good stress test. Did you end up looking up whether that Chris Rock thing or what was the first live thing they did?
It was indeed that Chris Rock special.
Right. And they did the roast of Tom Brady as well. I think they did that. Was like a live one. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've tried it a couple times, but we'll see.
Right. And what happened with them with this is like they were kind of thrown into probably the hottest one of the hottest fires they could get thrown into, which is honestly good for them because like, okay, now we know where our weak points are, wherever we need to fix, what we need to adjust. So we're ready to take on more of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like being, forced to face a worst case scenario. That's kind of, the best kind of trial by fire you can get.
Correct. More servers. Get me servers, pal, is what you guys would like to say.
Our specials today are.
So definitely, I'll, for anecdotal evidence, I had to work that night. What's up, Sonic the Hedge Rat? What's up, Liz? What's up, Lab Rat? I'm taking Brandon's job because nobody was here at first when he normally does it. But let's put it this way. I had to work that night, so I was sleeping. And when I woke up to get ready for work, the Tyson fight was halfway over. So I clicked Netflix on while I was getting ready for work, and it was about round 4 of the Tyson fight, and I experienced no lag or buffering or, I didn't have any issues at that point, from that point on till the end of the fight. So, at least for that fight, maybe some people didn't experience any issues. Perhaps they experienced it in the co-main event leading up or other things is what I was hearing. Also, you have to remember that it's a very American thing to have the shittiest internet. Like you're leeching off your neighbor's Wi-Fi and you would still have the nerve to complain about your download speeds or other things. Like that is very American. So my first instinct as someone who pays for quality internet is, are you guys' internet just trash? Or was it really a Netflix problem? Right? Like that's my first question. I'm not saying it couldn't have been Netflix's fault. I'm saying as an online gamer, I am well aware that most people do not have the respect for the sanctity of bandwidth that I do. So take that, take that for what you will, but that's just my experience. I tuned into half the main event live and didn't see any problems, so maybe they had fixed it by then, or maybe I wouldn't have had any problems the entire night. Who knows? No one knows.
Quit being a cheapskate, pal.
That's right. At least get your own Wi-Fi. Don't just take the McDonald's around the corner and hope that their signal's strong enough for you.
Oh, dude, the Dollar General Wi-Fi is so bad. I actually have to turn it off when I go in.
Yes. Yeah. I'd rather get my 5G. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, Lab Rat says my show was stopping all night except for the Tyson match. No problems. So they were probably like, they probably only had the undercard just so they could work out the kinks. Ain't nobody care about none of these other fights. Liz says I had issues in the women's match really bad in the third round of the main event. It cooked for a minute. Well, there you go. So anyway, that was that. If you want to hear a more in-depth commentary on the fight itself and the workingness thereof, then you can definitely go back and listen to the beginning portion or just the whole thing of the wreckage here on Hami Media Group with Kaboom with Jimmy T. If I say so myself, that was an excellent episode of the wreckage that we did, and by we I mean mostly me. So just check that out. I was on fire for some reason, and I delivered a hell of a show. And Jimmy only like blanked out of the picture once or twice, so it was good. Jimmy was only the Tyson fight one or two times, so check that out, and you can hear us talk about it. And then I'm sure that on the Next Level Wrestling Review, Ray and I are going to revisit the topic. I'm sure Ray's going to revisit the topic early in the morning tomorrow for I Like It Raw with Jimmy T. So if you really want to know what we think about the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, you've got several chances, but we don't need to talk about it here. And let's see, other wrestling news. All I have tonight, Brandon, is that's anything even close to relevant or barely newsworthy, but apparently Josh Alexander has retired from the Indies. And he put out a tweet about it, and I'm not going to read this, but it just basically says, he's made this decision to stop taking bookings because, he talked it over with his family and he's tired of the hustle, and he loved his time working in the Indies, and he loves the fans, and to please support the Indies, even though I'm not going to be there. That's the parenthetical part that he didn't say. Talking about how it's hard work and they're not doing it for money, they're doing it for love and living the dream and yada yada yada. And he's got one last booking for Wrestle Prestige on January 11th, and then he's hanging up the indie boots after that. So to which, most people would probably be like, okay, well, you're still doing indies, all right, there you go.
I was kind of thinking the exact same thing, Lab Rat. As soon as he said, as soon as you were reading that, I'm like, WWE has him earmarked, and he knows it, or somebody's told him.
Well, WWE these days is sending people to indies, so that's no longer the red flag that it once was. I think Sonic is more on point with that. Like, why am I going to go and work in these shitty rings and in these lame venues for hardly any money? TNA's giving me a guarantee. Or maybe it's both. But like we said, like WWE is reaching out and supporting the indies. So it's not like if this came like even even 1 year ago, you might say, yeah, WWE's earmarked him. But now that we've seen what we've seen, not necessarily 100% that's what that means. He could just really be. I would be fucking tired of it if TNA's paying me enough to live on. Why am I gonna hop in a car, work with some kid that's green and could hurt me, and I could be in a ring with it's got like a broken board with a nail sticking out of it that I could land on. Like what? And not to mention this other fact, which I don't know how many active pro wrestlers really think in these terms, but speaking for myself, I always thought that when you see something like a WWE production or even any major company production, whether it was WCW or AEW now or TNA or any of these companies, or even ECW had its own, like, it looked like it was a vibe, like it's on purpose, kind of, even though we all really know now, but it felt like that's what they wanted, and Paul Heyman tried to convince us that was a choice and not a reality. But any of those places that you see, you think of it as like, that's the big time, look at the lights, look at the arenas, look at this professional, it looks like a professional sporting event, right? And if you're a pro wrestler, you think about that. When you're a pro wrestler, you face the reality when you're starting out. And Brandon, you know probably exactly what I'm talking about. It's not those places. It is a gym. It is an armory. It is a county fair. It is a barn. It is any place that someone could fit a ring into, and anybody with any ambition or self-respect would be embarrassed to say that I do the same thing as, like, is this the same thing as what Hulk Hogan does, what Stone Cold does, what The Rock does, what, it's technically, it's the same sport, is LeBron James gonna want to play in a high school gym as a 40-year-old especially after you've tasted the arenas? Like Josh Alexander, he's been in TNA a while. He's done some decent sized shows. But even whatever you want to say, it looks clean and professional when they have the TV show, and you're not going to want to keep going working for these promotions and taking these bookings and not knowing what you're going to get and feeling like you're a loser still. There's no way you can't feel like that when you walk into a locker room and see this, this rundown building, this shitty ring, these guys all wearing the trash bag pants. Like,
yep, you look at the canvas, it looks like you could get hepatitis just by bumping in it.
Yeah. That's the stuff they don't really want to say in the nice glowing post on X, So I'll say it for him. He's tired of being embarrassed, and he puts a value on himself. I didn't love, I didn't love pro wrestling to the point that that's what I wanted to do when I walked out. Like, I didn't think it's like, oh, I love wrestling so much that I'm going to be a wrestler. I never thought like that. I thought, I love wrestling. I wish I didn't, but since I do, let me try to have a career in it somehow. Didn't really care if I was an actual wrestler wrestling in a ring, but just to be around and to be a contributor or something was something that I wanted to do. I didn't love it enough that I'm going to go, work a mud show somewhere, that I have a little bit more of a sense of self-worth than that, you know? So that's why I didn't pursue it after leaving OVW in any way. My local scene is kind of not great, so it wasn't even an opportunity. But
in a way, like showing your love for the business is not participating in those disgusting mud shows. Like basically shunning it and saying like this does not represent what I love and what I want to be a part of.
yes, especially somebody like Josh Alexander, who, say what you want about him, whether he's boring or whatever, even though he's doing better work as, you know, outside the ring as far as like his promos and stuff like that. But he's always looked like a professional. He's had wrestling gear, you know, like he looked like an athlete. So, you know, I can see not wanting to do this stuff with the guys with the basketball jerseys anymore. So good for you, pal.
Good for you.
Yep. And that's pretty much all I got. So other than Chris Winland's weekly question, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about this week as far as what's been going on out there?
I think we're good, pal. Let's get to it.
All right. Well, Chris Winland, as usual, has a question. And I don't really think... why can I not pull this up? Hold on a second. And a question. Chris Winland had a question. I'm try to vamp. Okay. How do I? Why am I not? Why is this not? Oh no, never mind. All right. So his question is: he says today's question is submission holds. Can you discuss some of the ins and outs of taking and applying submissions, from being more realistic on TV versus real life situations? Have you ever done any MMA style bouts? More so, some thoughts on submissions. So, submissions. Frankly, I think the biggest thing about submissions for me is something I repeatedly go back to and have done dissertations, you know, on in the past about. It's usually about when I talk about the people that are using the joint locks as like submission escape stories. So hi Revamped Wrestling as he joins us. So you know, I've said this a bunch of times. Like when you get somebody an ankle lock, you just either tap out or you get to the rope immediately or escape immediately. You do not do a prolonged, I'm in pain, I'm going to pass out from the pain. That bullshit. Like Josh Alexander recently had done. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do the Brock Lesnar Kimura thing where he has you in the Kimura for, 3 minutes and you're just not getting your elbow snapped or your shoulder torn out. Like those things happen immediately. And in real UFC fights, they put it on you to let you know they got it on you so that you can give up. And I've seen people refuse to give up and get stuff broken in the UFC octagon. So that's what really happens. And especially when you're a heel, putting a submission on a babyface, if the babyface don't give up, you have no reason not to just break his limbs. So I don't agree with that version of storytelling. And that's pretty much like the most that I have to say in depth about submissions. But Brandon, as far as the ins and outs of taking and applying, did you use any holds or stuff in the ring? Like, was one of your signature moves or anything? Like, did you use like a submission hold?
One of my finishers was a dragon sleeper with the body scissors.
Okay. So, yeah, he's just saying like the ins and outs of taking and applying. Like, I don't know. Do you have anything to... I mean, we just kind of do it. I don't remember having long conversations. I just tell the guy, yeah, I'm going to do this. And they're like, all right.
I kind of applied the same kind of logic to like whenever Kurt Angle would do the ankle lock, and then whenever he hooked the grapevine in, that's when you knew he wasn't getting out. Once I hooked in the body scissors, all right, that's when you know that's the match finish.
Okay, so that's like a storytelling sort of thing. Chris Jericho sometimes similarly did that, where if he used the lion tamer and put the knee on your neck, that was pretty much it. So those kind of things, I like that a little bit. But yeah. So and then being more realistic on TV versus real life situations. Well, I discussed that as far as MMA is concerned. And have I ever done any MMA style bouts? No, I haven't. What about you? Any of those? You ever done any of those? Uh, those Japan shoot fight things? No.
I have not, but I believe that there is a way that you can work it, make it believable, and keep it separate enough from the rest of the card to where it doesn't really like dilute to the rest of the card. Like a lot of that comes to presentation, like taking the ropes down, putting on a different canvas that has symbols on it, or something on it, or something like that. Just everything you can do to separate this from, okay, this is different, this is its own thing, whereas it's separate from the rest of the card.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think, and I also think to add on to that, ever since MMA has become increasingly more popular, I have been thinking that pro wrestling needs to get up to its level to start working things slightly more realistically so that there's more of a potential for crossover. Because if you look at what they actually have done, which is everybody that is now was a kid watching Rey Mysterio in the 90s on WCW is now old enough to be a wrestler. Now they are just trying to outdo Rey Mysterio from the 90s. And that has gone far away from that. So you're not going to see anybody climbing up in UFC. You don't see John Jones climb up to the top of the octagon and jump off and do a Hurricane Rana on Stipe Miocic. That's not going to happen. But so wrestling has gone that way rather than becoming a little more grounded, which you can always still have pro wrestling because pro wrestling is a martial art itself. And when it's mixed martial arts, you're talking about the grand Enter the Dragon, Bloodsport, Street Fighter 2, like the idea of a tournament of different styles coming together and clashing, like the original UFC was promoted as. That's what MMA is. People just say MMA like that's a fighting style now. It's not. It's a hybrid of everything that you know. So if you took karate classes when you were a kid, like a lot of people did, and then you learned a little jiu-jitsu, there's your mix of martial arts. You know a little bit of karate, a little bit of jiu-jitsu. If you know boxing and you want to learn some wrestling techniques, okay, now you're a mixed martial artist. But MMA itself is not a martial art. But pro wrestling can be, because pro wrestling has rules and moves and things that they can do. They would frown on a pile driver in the octagon, so you can't use it. But in a pro wrestling match, you can. So things like that, where there's similar combat, but you have different rules. I think pro wrestling has failed to lean into that storytelling idea, and they've gone further into ridiculousness. While MMA started out as like a savage free-for-all, the human cockfighting, if you will, and has added rules and weight classes and things over time to like bring it more in line with a palatable sports presentation. And it looks a lot more professional than it did in the early 90s. So instead of meeting in the middle somewhere, so that now we have a much more comfortable and fluid transition from MMA to pro wrestling and back, instead it just MMA fighters come in, they have a lot more of an uphill battle when they try to do pro wrestling, and most pro wrestlers can't do MMA. Like Brock Lesnar would be your famous example of someone that succeeded, but long story short, that bullshit was a work too, and CM Punk wasn't a work, and look what happened, and things like that, right? Bobby Lashley, but we knew Bobby Lashley was legit when he was still a wrestler, a pro wrestler. Some people have dabbled, like Batista beat up a fat guy once. Like we've seen some MMA cameos from pro wrestlers, but for the most part, it don't really happen. So, what was my point? Oh yeah, MMA should have been a much bigger part of pro wrestling and the presentation of pro wrestling, so that now we are having people. It's harder for people to they're able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Their suspension of disbelief is it's not such a burden. They'll be looking at stuff like, oh shit, was that real? That we could be doing that a lot more these days, I think. And submissions are kind of a big part of that. When Ken Shamrock came in and brought submissions to like a major stage as far as like awareness in pro wrestling, I'm talking about like the stuff that was legit, like ankle locks and heel hooks and those type of things. He's doing that, and that's the most times people are seeing it if they never watch MMA. We could have gone in a different direction starting with that, and we kind of didn't.
Here's one thing, like looking at how the setup is now and the ownership, WWE and UFC are two divisions of the same company. How hard would it be to have people collaborate with, like you have UFC fighters and trainers come over to the WWE and teach the wrestlers, like they get together and kind of figure out a system of like, okay, we learn how to do shoot holds, but learn how to work them without hurting somebody.
I mean, seems pretty basic and simple. And I actually, people that have been listening on HMG for a long time have probably heard me say that, I didn't ever think that WWE and UFC would be owned by the same company. I just said, in a world where UFC is big, you ought to be thinking about ways to do this integration. Like, yeah, we UFC's here, WWE's here, but we can do more things with combat sports athletes promotion wise. I was saying that everybody should be looking towards doing stuff like that and grabbing both audiences. I'd never even imagined that they would actually be the same thing. I just was saying you should try to get more, try to get more synergy there. The same way, kind of like the way NXT and TNA are doing talent exchange and working together and things like that. I was thinking WWE, UFC would do something like that, and now they're expected to. So you've done nothing to prepare for this moment, is what I'm saying. Like you had Ronda Rousey and Vince McMahon just fucking smash that out of existence. Like, yeah, we're gonna make sure she doesn't have any fun doing this, and forced her out. So there was a big deal. Yep. And Charles the Hammer's here. What's up, Charles the Hammer? Good to see you, my friend. So yeah, the only other thing I have to say about submissions is, in terms of storytelling, I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. But Brandon, like, I don't like the idea of a babyface giving up. I just don't. I'm one of the few people that actually enjoyed, for what it was, like in the context and perspective, I enjoyed the Star Wars prequel trilogy. But the one thing, if I could change only one thing about it, in episode 3, when Yoda runs away from Senator Palpatine, it just never sits right with me. Like, you can't do that. You cannot do that. It's the hero can't be a coward. If you're telling a story of a guy that's a reluctant hero that overcomes being afraid, by having doubts at first, that's different. But when you've established a hero, you cannot turn them into. You cannot do that to him. So that's bad writing. And I feel the same way in wrestling. If you want a guy to be a hero, you can't have him give up. Of course, there can be ways that you can make it happen, but you always have the out. Like if you're trying to get somebody's submission hold over some heel submission. Whoa, I gotta establish a heel submission hold. And I'm talking about major babyface. I'm not talking about just like a good local guy that's a nice local guy. I'm not talking about that. Those guys could give up. I'm talking about your stars here. Those guys can always be put in a position where like they refuse to give up, and like the referee will just stop the match because he can't get out. That's what happens in, it's like what happens in boxing or MMA when a guy's taking punches and doesn't defend himself. The referee calls it off. Same thing. So if you want to get the heel over submission wise, give the babyface a thing so he could say like, I didn't give up. You couldn't make me quit. And then you could have an I quit match. And then the babyface can make the heel say I quit. And you can see how this goes, right? So doing stuff like that, yes. But taking a person that you want the people to believe in and you control the outcome, never make your hero quit is my philosophy. What say you? And I want to hear what you guys in the chat also think.
It can be having a babyface willingly give up can work. It depends on what's leading up to it, the match itself, how you led into the finish, and where you go from there. Like if you're trying to tell a story of like a babyface doubting himself, and him giving up as a catalyst point to drive him further into a depression, and he starts, falling into a bad place. He starts going on a losing streak, and he has to pull himself out of that. That's one thing. Again, that's just one example.
Right,
There's
sure.
million different ways you can do that, but as long as you have like a clear direction in mind of, okay, we're doing this for a reason, and we know where we're going with it, well, yeah, I can accept that. But if you're just doing it just to do it, not so much. And also has to be a heel that you're trying to establish as a dominant heel. Like, this is the guy we're going with. This is the guy we want to make money with.
Yes. Well, even with those parameters, there's still very, very few reasons where you need your babyface to physically give up. There's always a way that you can do it to where it looks like the decision was made for them because they want to keep fighting. So, yeah. It as Gru says, I quit match of the babyface trying to save someone else, but that's, we got to limit that kind of soap opera stuff in the first place, in my opinion. I'm not that into that kind of stuff. Shouldn't really come down to that, but that is one example. Like, you could do it like that, but I don't think you need to get to that point. Let me think. What else? Yeah. There's always a way around it. Even the Yoda thing. The scene is he gets like knocked down like a long shaft or whatever. Like one of those, in those spaceships or whatever bullshit that is. And then he ends up like escaping. And all you had to do was, this is the point where, I think Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting on Mustafar, and they're like, Anakin's in trouble because he's about to get all his limbs hacked off and burned alive or whatever. So all you have to do is give it the thing where Yoda's incapacitated and Palpatine escapes, so that when Yoda comes back, like when he comes to or whatever, he goes back to find him and then he's gone. That's all you had to do, and you got to the same place. But instead, you buried Yoda by making him scurry away.
Palpatine gets the distress signal from Anakin. He launches a knockout blow and blast out.
Yeah. And then you leave Yoda there like, come on, you son of a bitch. Kick your ass, I will. So yeah. So that's basically what I think. And also for the record, in the few matches that I won, I used a sharpshooter, so take that for what you will. I guess that's it. I guess we should just get right into the TNA Impact review.
Get me the moose, pal.
Well, I'm not going to have much of that for you here, but there's no ETA on the moose action figure. We're still waiting on that. That's an unspecified delay, and I have no updates. Yeah, boo. Boo, boo. If you turned into the wreckage, you did see my exclusive Jay White. You saw my Jay White Sonic the Hedgehog, my Jay White collectible figure. Way better than any collectible figure that Dolph Ziggler's ever had. But anyway, we're starting this episode. Yes. Oh, that's the other thing too. That's like what Charles said. Heels giving up gets the babyface over. I didn't even. I was so focused on talking about babyfaces not giving up and getting buried that I didn't even think about the other side of the equation. But thank you very much, Charles. All right, so we get our traditional ketchup packet. This could be, I don't know. This even could be a Hunt's ketchup packet on this. It's DQ here.
I'm pretty sure they use Heinz though.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying the package itself wasn't the top of the line, but we did get. Maybe it is Heinz because we got the in the package. They were able to they were able to play the Ryan Nemeth song in its entirety. So, that was good. But we're starting out with Santana versus KC Navarro, as we set up last week. Spin to win. There was never any doubt of the outcome. This man's gonna beat Moose. He ain't gonna lose to KC fucking Navarro. I don't care how many AJ Francises are standing outside. So predictable, and it follows through. Any notes?
Not really, other than it went too long to get the business it needed to get done.
All right. Well, speaking of Dolph, Zia is with the Ziggler brothers and no music underneath. Yada, yada, yada. No one cares. And I mean that. Despite my indifference towards the Ziggler brothers, they just cut Dolph just cut a generic promo, and then his brother was just slightly less generic only because he had an angle that he's working in. But it's still Ryan Ziggler, so it's not going to blow anybody's socks off. So
he's Nick's brother.
The end. Yes. And that is the end of that. And then they show the Hardys and Ace with Gia and no music underneath. And they're trying to talk. And then Trent comes in and says that Gia should be talking to him about the low blow heard around the world or whatever. And I don't know how small he thinks the world is, but nobody knows about this. And they start shoving. And then as soon as Trent starts a fight, Jake Something and Hammerstone immediately are there.
Yeah, and then what? 5 seconds later, there's Santino. Are you kidding me?
Yep. It was great. Yeah, Santino separates the end. You people are acting like animals.
How more choreographed and set up could you make that look?
Not much. They did a great job of that. So, that was weak. And then speaking of weak, oh my God, the return of Alan Angels, as we were all waiting with bated breath for Alan Angels to make his big return, and he's got uh, Jake Christ as a tag team partner, and they're taking on the Rascals. The only thing I was wondering during this match, because I saw Jake Christ and I was like, I'm just looking at Jake Christ. I'm looking at him. I'm like, I know you're Jake Christ because they told me, but whatever happened to like Mandrews and that pilot kid? Remember them? Didn't they originally come in with Danny Luna? And now she's still here and they're gone?
Yeah, now, yeah. Like she signed with TNA, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they didn't. But like I was just like, this is not Mark Andrews. This is Jake Christ, even though he looks just like Mark Andrews. Whatever happened to Mark Andrews? That's all I could think about while this match was going on. I don't care. The Rascals win, obviously. But like that was going through my mind. What was the other guy's name?
Alan Angels?
No. I'm talking about on the team with Mark Andrews, Subculture. It was Mark Andrews and something. He had a nickname and two names.
Now I gotta look it up.
It was Flyboy Rocco Rock. No. It was, who was it?
Morgan Webster.
Flash Morgan Webster. That's it. Now that's a cool wrestling name, but the guy itself was just, his charisma was he put on like a bomber jacket. So there you go. Elaborate has a question, Brandon. You want to read the question?
Yep. Currently, Speedball is, from everything that I have read, Speedball is currently no longer under contract with TNA. And that's all I know.
So,
I believe so. Not 100% sure.
Well, how can we be 100% sure with wrestling information these days? Yeah. So, yeah, nothing changes for Angels. He gets beat here, and they also do that thing I hate where I call it the Lucha Brothers spot, where they hit the guy with a finishing move and then they wait to pin that guy until the other partner dives on the guy outside and then they pin him. I fucking hate it. It's dumb.
Yeah, go for the pin, and then like after you have the guy hooked, you do the dive like as the extra insurance.
Here's an idea. Production spies. Can you just do this? You know how part of a wrestling producer / agent's job is they have to smarten up the people in the control room, the truck, if you will, about the spots that are coming up, so they make sure that they have the correct camera angles in place to catch the action. Well, if you want to do a dumb thing where you dive on the partner at the same time as somebody getting pinned, why don't you just have the guy with the floor cam stand on the entrance ramp so that when the guy dives out, you're seeing him dive toward the camera, but you're seeing the pin in the background, the 1, 2, 3. And then it looks like a different kind of cinematic shot. It looks cool. It looks sportsy. And it's different. And then you get both things in one shot so they don't have to hit a move and then wait for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, dive, then cover the guy. There, free idea.
Dude, I just thought of a great shot. You have the thing where you're standing on the ramp and you're facing like towards the ring. The guy hits the dive, and as he hits the dive, ref hits 3.
I mean, yeah, that would be the idea, but even if you couldn't time it perfectly, it's still better for the guy not to look like a dumbass waiting to pin a guy that got a,
it doesn't need to look pretty. It needs to look real.
Yeah. Well, speaking of not looking pretty, what is this fake Grindhouse Spitfire promo that they were doing? What is this?
I appreciate them trying to do something different with production, make them stand out. I like the thought process going into it, execution. Yeah, we need to do more work with that.
You could dress it up however you want. It's still a promo with these two. And also, the presentation sucked. I'm tired of people trying to do analog digitally. You know what? You know what's getting over like that? The Outrunners. The Outrunners have vignettes on AEW where they just film it with a camcorder and then upload that footage. That's what VHS looks like. You trying to put like the burn spots in the film and like those things like that, those the Wyatt family, this just stop
or
it.
like the white line, like right in the middle, like going
Yeah.
the vertical white.
Yeah, just stop it. Stop trying to recreate film damage. It just doesn't. No, stop it. But hey, the Northern Armory's back in action. They got all their travel issues sorted out. They're taking on. All three of those guys are taking on Burt Macklin, Eric Young, and John Gresham.
As soon as they came out in their matching suits, I'm like, this is Canada team angle.
Canada team angle. Hey, didn't we have some sort of Canadian team in TNA? If we think back, nah, probably not. Right? Never done it before, right?
Yeah. Like what was like some dude named Eric, another dude named Bobby, another dude named Petey. I think they had a coach.
These guys all sound generic as hell.
I think they had a coach named Scott.
Well, in any case, we get the Northern Armory. So yeah, this match had a lot of action, but they end up hitting Josh ends up hitting the C4 on Burt. So for once, Jonathan Gresham didn't take a pin. There was that. I don't know. It felt like it was fun. I'm not gonna lie and say it had 100% of my attention, but it looked like a lot of guys running around doing stuff. Pretty exciting for the live crowd.
I liked the match. It had action, and plus the finish and the story they told in the match led to story and character development later on in the show and leading into next week. So I liked it.
As bad as that was, spoiler alert. Well, we'll get there. But yeah. So King Kazarian thinks that by beating Rhino, he should have won his Hall of Fame induction, which I think is just great. But then Rhino steps in and is like, you may have beat me in my hometown, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna beat your fucking ass. And I'm like, yeah. ECW Rhino saying the F word.
Tell him, Rhino.
Yeah.
Did you just hear him? He swore.
Yeah. Yeah, Frankie didn't like that. You can't do that. Well, guess what else you can't do, Frankie? You can't use insider terms on TV, so stop it.
Get me sex, pal.
So Burt Macklin wants justice from Santina. And then he goes and talks to Eric Young. And then he and Eric Young are talking. And then yeah.
Fuck you, fanboy.
There you go. Let you take it. So
wait a minute, B. Stan Lee?
So what about the Thing? Is all Orange Rocks or so Jonathan Gresham comes up while Eric and Burt are arguing, and he's like, hey guys, whatever is going on between, if you got my back, I got your back. And then he excuses himself, and then Eric Young proceeds to tell Burt, this is on you. Pretty basic, pretty simple. It's on you, not me.
Yeah, I think the story they're trying to tell is like Macklin has trust issues. He can only, he can't really rely on anybody else. Whereas Eric's trying to remind him, hey, you were in war, you were in foxholes with people. Try to think this is a situation you find yourself in once again.
Yep. I'm just telling you. Babyface Macklin is not an idea. Here's an idea. Ryan Ziegler versus Joe Hendry, in which we get the director's cut of Ryan Ziegler's story. And it turns out to be pretty much the same as the theatrical release, if not shorter.
I'd argue it was shorter.
And Ryan sells it, and then Joe Hendry's like, yeah, he's like, well, I mean, he I guess maybe tone it down a bit. Like, he could have just been like, okay, like, yeah, very funny. It's the same joke, you know. And then the second time when they play it again, that's what gets him. Okay, it's not funny anymore. He's selling it like he damn near sold it like they like just ripped his clothes off in the middle of the ring and he was ass naked. It's like, like, just stop. It's a fucking video.
Right. Instead, he should be like, okay, now it's time. I'm ready to beat your ass now.
Yeah, which he did. Because when Joe played it again, he got jumped. And, of course, the outcome of this was obvious. And at least they didn't, you know, take too long with it. But, yeah. Any further notes on this segment here?
I mean, other than the nitpicky stuff we talked about, it's pretty much accomplished what it needed to accomplish.
Well, did Rosemary versus Jada Stone accomplish what it needed to accomplish?
Honestly, I thought this would have been better. Instead of Jada Stone, it would have been Xia Brookside.
Well, we got to give Rosemary a strong win first. I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, but it seems like Xia Brooks. I don't know. To me, Rosemary seems like she's past the enhancement matches with local talent. Like if she did it with like a Xia Brookside, who's kind of sort of been established a bit, that at least would carry a little bit more gravitas, as opposed to, I don't know. I'm reaching very far here. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, you don't have to make excuses for their poor decisions. You just have to punch it up. That's your only concern. Because here's the thing. I feel like they think that Xia Brookside is something that Rosemary has to work up to. I think that's where they're at in their mind, which is fucking wrong-headed. So, yeah. And, yeah, it goes how you expect it would go. Now earlier, they say earlier, the system, had a in-ring, and they've had a ring ceremony where they gave each other these, as the system is now great again because Moose has a secondary title. They have a ring ceremony where they did all this, but we're just seeing that this happened earlier. We could have made this part of the show and we chose not to. So that's weird, but you know, at least we got the Rosemary Strong win on TV. So that was earlier, but now, do you want to know something? Here comes Alicia Edwards. She's out there cutting a promo.
No neck brace. Makes me sad.
No neck brace, but good promo. And then Masha comes out and she takes the mic and she's like, if you think it was a fluke last week, then I'd be happy to do it again. Then Jordan Grace comes out and she's like, hey, I'm pretty sure I know how this is going to go between you guys, but I still have a rematch clause and I want to face the winner at Turning Point. So there you go.
Yeah, pal.
Yeah, okay. Dolph checking on Ryan now. Did something happen? Did I miss something? Is he just selling the standing ovation still, or did Joe Hendry hit him with a pipe or something? Because he's like laying on the table when Dolph goes over there. So I was wondering, did I accidentally fast forward past something? Did my feed edit something out from Access TV? Unfortunately, like what happened here?
Yeah, it's kind of a good question. I want to say I think he might have said he got attacked and then pointed the finger at Hendry, but because we didn't see it, we don't know who did it.
Okay, so we didn't
I don't know 100%. I don't remember 100% sure if that's actually what happened. But I'm just
well,
saying
that's what I got from it. But I was just wondering, did they show him getting found or something?
No,
okay.
Like literally, like yeah,
okay.
he just Nemeth, like Nick ran into him as he's in gorilla, and there he is on the stretcher.
Okay, so what they want to do here is they want to do the Goodfellas shot so that we could follow Dolph all the way from backstage back through the curtain and whatever, right? Well, actually, we don't. We follow him up to the curtain, then they switch because this was probably a pre-tape or something, even though it sounded like the music was going on. So at least the audio cue worked. But so he goes from checking on his brother, and Santino's like, you got a match. Go. We'll take care of this. And then he goes, and then there's smugly Frankie Kazarian is standing there with his trophy and wishing him good luck sarcastically. So it's probably just that Frankie Kazarian attacked him, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole idea, right? Isn't that why you would do this? At the very least, a red herring, but certainly a strong indication. And then Dolph doesn't have time to deal with that, so he just stares at him and then goes up through the stairs through the curtain. And yeah. So it's your main event. And this main event would have been a main event from the WWE show Main Event from 2016. If you were watching it. Which is, you would have got Dolph Ziggler versus Kurt Hawkins, but here it's Nick Nemeth versus Brian Myers. So it's an all new match, and then Joe Hendry comes out for commentary, and then the match happens, and I'm sure Brandon would condense it, and then Lish takes Kendra and hits Ziggler with her, and then Joe Hendry's like, I've seen enough, and he carries Alicia Edwards over his shoulder out of the ring into the backstage area. And then Dolph hits a danger zone. And then Fat Eddie comes to hit the heat back. The deadliest move in pro wrestling. Except, I guess it doesn't count as a heat back when you're not the guy that just got beat. I guess it's only a heat back if you get beat. So Eddie just does a regular run in. But then here comes Joe Hendry back with Kendra, and he hits everybody with Kendra, but he stops short of hitting Dolph Ziggler. Oh, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, hey. And then that's where we basically think the show is over because we see the TNA logo, but then we get a little something extra, which we'll get to in a second. First, your main event diagnosis.
It was, I mean, it at least got business done, just the most basic kind of predictable business we could have expected, which isn't always a bad thing. In this case, it kind of was.
Yes. Sonic the Hedge Rat says, every time I hear about these dudes, one of them messed up backstage. Now, this is exactly why I'm talking about this all the time. There's too much of this kind of bullshit, right? Where you keep booking anarchy and chaos on your wrestling show to try to manufacture excitement. But it sounds ridiculous. And if Sonic never watches it, all he does is hear about how often somebody is like in a backstage attack or something like that. So when you're watching it week to week to week and stuff, you see it so many times. But even if you're just casually hearing us talk about it, it still sounds like too much. Why is somebody always hurt backstage? The casual person might think. It's like way too much. So, now after the TNA, logo, thing, they show Burt Macklin on a cinematic road trip, with the slow old man country emo bullshit that Eric Young always uses, and how about this? To be continued. Oh man, I definitely can't miss next week's episode. We're gonna see more old man country emo bullshit with Burt Macklin, FBI. Sign me up.
Yeah, pal.
Okay. Oh my God.
To be fair, I didn't even realize that. I didn't even know that took place till you just mentioned that.
Really?
Yeah, the feed I watched cut it off before that.
I thought you did see it because I thought you were saying it's a lead into next week, but you were talking about the main event being a lead into next week. This is a literal lead in, like saying to be continued, like it's a fucking, like it's an 80s sitcom episode. Wow. Yeah, it was you, man, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch how lame this was. It was kind of like, it reminded me of, remember when Eric Young got up from his stabbing and got on the motorcycle? It was like that, but it was just Burt driving in a car.
Oh, jeez. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Get me Burt Macklin in a car, pal.
Yeah. By the way, when did Eric Young become Casey Jones, Labrat says? He hasn't been Casey Jones for a long time. He thinks he's Dr. Doom now. He's not either one of those characters. So. Oh my God. Well, you know what? It's a good thing that I have so much fun with Brandon and talking to all of you guys, because this is almost borderline unwatchable.
Let's punch that shit up, pal.
Let's punch it up.
All right, let me adjust this real quick.
That's what she said?
Or he said, who knows?
Or he said.
And for some reason, the battery in my laptop decided to charge back up. I don't know how or why.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I might have done that with that. Oh, I found a better one. All right, so we kick it off with our recap catch-up packet. This is an actual Heinz one this time.
Boom. Red and vibrant.
Intro Pyro Ballyhoo. Go to the announce table, run down card for tonight, give their thoughts on recent events. We go to an in-ring segment of the System, Nick Nemeth, Ryan Nemeth, and Joe Hendry. Actually, we got to cut Nick out of there. He doesn't appear.
Yeah, get out of here, Nick. Get out of here. Is this the ring presentation?
It is the ring presentation.
All right.
We get the System music and entrance. The ring is set up for the System's ring ceremony. Promos from all members before the ceremony happens. Joe Hendry music and entrance. Joe Hendry makes fun of the ceremony before he puts over the System for being resilient. Because again, every time the System has been knocked down and lost, they come back and take belts. Such as, they lose the tag belts, Moose becomes X Division champion. All right, so Nick Nemeth music. Oh wait, I'm tripping. Sorry.
No, he's dead. He's dead. He died. He went back to his home planet and died on the way.
Nick Nemeth music. Nick Nemeth music plays, but he doesn't come out. Ryan Nemeth jumps Hendry from behind with a weapon and lays him out, and the System watch from the ring and they laugh. Commercial break in number 1. Go backstage with Gia Miller and Nick Nemeth. Same interviews on the show, but without Ryan. Ryan walks into the shot, and Nick asks him what that was just about. Ryan says he's tired of Hendry disrespecting him and Nick, and it's time one of them did something about it. Match number 1, Casey Navarro versus Mike Santana. Casey Navarro music and entrance with AJ Francis. Mike Santana, music and entrance, condensed version of match on the show. We go backstage to Gia, Hardy's, Ace, Seven, Hammerstone, and Jake Something. Same as on the show up until Trent Seven enters the shot. Trent Seven talks about how he's glad Bay is hurt because that's another flippy small guy out of the way. And he goes off on the Hardys for paving the way for guys like ABC. Hardy's Ace get angry, and Seven says he's found two men who agree with him. And that's when Hammerstone and Something jump Hardy's and Ace while Seven joins in.
So that I like the idea of like Trent Seven complaining about flippy small guys. He's like, they should all be fat small guys like me.
So then we go backstage to the Systems locker room. Moose says they have to let their enemies destroy each other and then pick the bones. There's a knock on the door. Moose asks who's there. We go to our second commercial break. Before the break, cut to a version of what we saw in the Systems locker room, or a smaller version of what we saw in the Systems locker room before we went to break. Go to the announce table. They say the System forced the cameraman out of the locker room when they saw who was there, and they are still talking with the person who knocked on their door. Match number 2, Alan Angels and Jay Chris versus the Rascals. Alan Angels and Jay Chris, music and entrance. Rascals, music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show. Vignette, Spitfire, same as on the show. Pre-tape, Frankie Kazarian and Rhino, same as on the show. Backstage, locker room. Young, Macklin, and Gresham are getting ready for their match. Macklin is visibly focused on his hatred towards Josh Alexander. Young tries to get Macklin to focus and remember he's part of a team. Tensions begin to rise. Gresham calms things down. You go backstage to Gia and Joe Hendry. Gia asks Hendry for her thoughts on what happened earlier with Ryan attacking him. Hendry says that while he respects Nick, he's going to embarrass Ryan both in and out of the ring tonight. You go to our third commercial break. Match number 3, Joe Hendry versus Ryan Nemeth. Joe Hendry, music and entrance, same promo and video is on the show. Ryan Nemeth, music and entrance, same matches on the show. We go to a vignette with Ash and Heather by Elegance with the concierge. They've been invited to an upscale party where they can make high-profile connections. So Ash and the concierge basically put Heather through a dinner party etiquette seminar. Match number 4, Northern Armory versus Eric Young, Steve Macklin, and Jonathan Gresham. Northern Armory, music and entrance. Eric Young, music and entrance. Jonathan Gresham, music and entrance. Steve Macklin, music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show. We go to a PCO vignette. It says he's coming back to defend his titles, interspersed with clips of his recent stories and angles. We go backstage to the Systems locker room. Gia knocks on the door and Moose answers. Gia asks who is in there talking with them. Moose says that she, the rest of TNA, and the world will find out when the time is right. Go to our fourth commercial break. Match number 5, Rosemary versus Jada Stone. Rosemary, music and entrance. Jada Stone is already in the ring. Same matches on the show. Pre-tape, same promos on the show with the System holding up their rings, but no Alicia in this because she is on her way out to the ring for an in-ring. Cuts the same promo as on the show. Masha Slamovich, music and entrance. Everything goes down like it does on the show with Tasha and Grace getting involved. We go backstage to Young, Macklin, Gresham, and Santino. Same pre-tape we saw on the show. We go backstage to the System's locker room. The rest of the System hype up Myers for his match. Moose assures Myers not to worry if he loses and to trust the System because there is a plan in place and the System always works. Go to our 5th and final commercial break. New Japan hype video, announce table, run down current Turning Point card, next week's card. Match number 6 in our main event. Brian Myers versus Nick Nemeth. Brian Myers, music and entrance. Nick sees Ryan on the stretcher in Gorilla and tries to talk to him before his music hits. Shot continues to follow Nick as he walks to the stage entrance. Nick Nemeth, music and entrance. Joe Hendry, music and entrance. Joe Hendry on commentary. Slightly condensed version of match on the show. Same finish, and the show goes off the air with Nick and Joe staring each other down. But I'd also add in two shots of Moose assuring the rest of the System, hey, this is part of the plan. Trust the System.
Yes, trust the System. As long as there's more Moose. I used the Poochie line on Dolph earlier, and Gruis says Ryan is Poochie the dog from The Simpsons, And in reality, like, I think we always joke about it off the air. I don't know how many times if we said it on the air, but Brandon and I always tell Brandon, like, I literally think that Moose should be the way Homer was talking about Poochie, where it's like every time Moose isn't on the screen, everybody else should be saying, "Where's Moose?"
Where's Moose?
Right. Yeah, this shouldn't even be Impact. It should just be TNA Moose, and it
Moose
should
Moose.
just be like, yeah, the Moose, and everything that ever happens has to go through him. But apparently they don't even feel, at least his off-air segment got mentioned, you know. His ring ceremony for the live crowd and that, at least it gets a mention on the show with a little bit of footage, but man. Sigh. Well, there it was. Punched up, punched out. We are just about wrapped. Rapped like a rap artist named Brian Myers, apparently.
Yeah, Alicia would make a great squirrel sidekick until you call animal control. So we all saw what happened with that.
Well, let's get the people on out of here. We have appreciated you guys hanging out with us tonight, but the show is over, and we can hang out with you in other various ways all over the internet. Brandon, where can the people find you these days?
No, they can, as always, catch me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X, at LG Brandon Whoop. I am also live at least once a week, every Wednesday night after the AEW watch along on Twitch, twitch.tv/LG Brandon Whoop Whoop. And of course, we got the watch alongs that we do almost every night of the week here on HMG. Tomorrow night, we got HMG After Dark. Not sure. I think we're going to go back to the New Jack. That was planned, but it had to get canceled. So we'll reschedule that for tomorrow night. Wednesday night, of course, the AEW Dynamite watch along. We're counting belts. And surprisingly, this past week, SmackDown beat Dynamite for the belt count, 8-6.
Well, I do always say that, like, the way Tony handles things is that he listens to everybody bitching about it, and then he makes his notes, and then he implements the changes like 3 to 6 months down the line, so it doesn't look like he just kowtowed to everybody immediately.
Yeah, dude, he's a weird dude, but honestly, as a wrestling fan, I'm thankful for Tony Khan.
Bless Tony Khan.
So yeah, and then Thursday night, I think we're going to be back for HMG After Dark. I'm not sure what we're doing for that. For then Friday night will be a late start for the SmackDown watch along. And then Saturday night, I think we'll be doing, actually might do a late start Collision. It's been a while since we've done one of those. So might do that. And then Sunday night, the TNA Impact replay watch along.
And then, of course, that brings us all the way back to Monday, which is when we will see you next. As for me, the next time you can see me is, well, for an HMG capacity, you can see me on the Next Level Wrestling Review this Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern with Big Ray Hernandez. And we will definitely be talking about the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson in depth, because even Ray couldn't wait till Wednesday to text me what he thought and what he thought about my thoughts that were on The Wreckage, which is every Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern with Jimmy T, where I cut a whole promo on that. I cut a whole promo on a bunch of stuff. If you guys are into the stuff that I do, I strongly recommend you check out The Wreckage. A lot of you do, most of you do, but if you missed it, go back and check it out, channelattitude.com. I was on fire for 2 hours, so somehow I ran, we ran through, I was so on fire that we speed ran it, and I ran through the entire week of AEW, and we still had 10 minutes under 2 hours, so And that's with us spending 40 minutes talking about news. So I did a week of AEW in about an hour 10. Check it out, please. I'm proud of it. And then, yeah, as far as other things that I'm proud of, you could check out Wrestling with Rip Rogers. Hey, y'all hear about Rip Rogers. You hear that I'm a Rip Rogers guy. Well, what happens when a Rip Rogers guy and Rip Rogers get together for a live Q&A where we answer all of your questions? That's what happened the past 2 weeks over there. So if you haven't gone over to Wrestling with Rip Rogers YouTube channel, go give that a subscribe. Go give it a like. Go leave comments on everything. Hit the notification bell so that if it ever comes on, you can pop it on. And then if I'm there as the co-host, like I was filling in for Von Lilas, then hey, you get even more vet. It's what a bargain. And yeah, as far as any more vet, probably the next time you can see me at Opinion Haver on all your social media platforms, including Twitch. I'll be tomorrow morning after I Like It Raw. I will be playing some kind of video game on Twitch, and you guys can hang out and chat with me there, even if you don't care about video games or whatever, or you just want to ask questions about wrestling, and I'll hang out with you guys and talk. That's where you can find me. Opinion Haver on all platforms. Opinion Haver is very simple, very easy. And I think that should just about cover everything. So did you tell the people where they can find you on social media, Brandon? I couldn't remember.
Indeed,
okay.
sir.
Okay. LG Brandon, whoop whoop. So for LG Brandon, whoop whoop, I'm the vet, and